Okay. Okay. So. Okay, 15A1. Why the trees do not grow downward? You can see the sea has lots of salt water, contains salt. Okay, when there's salt, then we say sea water contains lots of salt. Okay. So the sea water has a low water potential. Okay, Romana, do you understand what is water potential? This is our basic concept learned in Form 3. Romana? What is water potential? Can you tell me now? Can you explain to me whether you understand something about water potential? You can get your mic. We don't have so many students here. Just use your microphone. What is water potential? What is water potential?
It's potential energy of water per unit volume relative to volume.
I hear you speaking, but I don't hear what you say.
It's a potential energy.
Oops, you muted. You mute the mic. Okay, so previously we learned about it. For example, when there's something, when there's a differentially permeable membrane. Okay. For example, a cell membrane. I hope you still have some kind of concept like this. Okay. So when for example, let me draw the seawater beside that. Seawater is here. Okay. If the seawater has lots of salt, I draw this as salt. Okay. When the seawater has lots of salt, okay, this is a seawater. And then the cell membrane, inside the cell, we have this is the cytoplasm. Okay, this is a cytoplasm. And inside the cell, we have less water potential. Okay. So the concept is that when there's more salt, then the water potential is lower. That is a low water potential. I hope you still have some basic concept from Form 3. Okay. So cytoplasm has a higher water potential, and seawater has a lower water potential. Okay. So there is a net movement of water. Net movement of water from high potential to low potential. Okay. From high potential to low potential. From high to low potential. Therefore, the tree cells will loses water by osmosis. Okay, the tree cell loses water in this format. Okay, so I know you were not using this textbook when you're in Form 3, supposedly. Okay, osmosis. So for example, the cell, for example, you're putting the cell, this is the cell, and the water potential outside is lower. Water potential outside is quite low. Okay, so the cell will actually lose water. Cell will shrink and become wrinkled. Cell will shrink and become wrinkled. For plant cell, it's almost the same. It's almost the same. The water will leave the cell. Water will leave the cell. The cell will become flaccid, plasmolized, and vacuole shrinked. So this is not a good state. Okay. So to explain this, we will say the seawater contains lots of salt. So the seawater has a low water potential. Okay. And what's the result then? If this situation goes further, tree cells lose water and become flaccid or plasmolized. Okay, I hope you learn all these. When they're flaccid, when they're plasmolized, what happened then? Okay. And so the cell cannot function properly. So lose water by osmosis and become flaccid or become plasmolized. So the cell cannot survive. So the plant cannot survive. Okay, this is the first possible reason why the trees don't grow somewhere near the sea. They don't grow somewhere near the sea. So what are the other possible reasons? What may be the other possible reason? For example, Romana, I want to ask, if you live near the sea, do you experience the strong waves? Do you experience the strong waves near the sea? Yes, okay, I saw your answer. So you can answer either one. Reason one is that the tree loses water. Reason two. Okay, when there is a strong waves from the from the sea. Do you think, Romana, do you think the strong waves will wash away the soil? Can it wash away? What is the effect? If they wash away the soil, can the trees got a firm support from the soil? Strong waves from the sea can wash the soil away. Do you get it? Yeah, wash it. You can wash it away. Wash the soil away. So the root of trees cannot have a good anchorage to the soil or to the rock. Okay, you don't have soil left, so there's only rock. For the rock, it's hard for the trees to stand strong. So the roots of trees cannot have a good anchorage. On the soil, on the rock. Okay, so they hardly grow somewhere near the sea. They can hardly grow somewhere near the sea. Okay, this is point 1. Why the barnacles don't grow somewhere up to the cliff? Grow somewhere up to the cliff. So reason 15A2. For 15A2, you need to know what does the organism require. Okay, barnacles on the coast have to obtain food from the sea. Okay, when they grow further away from the sea, they cannot get any food. Okay, barnacles have to obtain food from the sea. When you grow away from the sea, when you grow up the cliff, cannot get the food when they grow up the cliff away from the sea. Okay, away from the sea. So basically, my concept is that I want you to, for these 2-mark questions, I want you to understand there's a mechanism, there's a framework to answer all these questions. Okay, what is the need of organisms? What is the need of the organisms? For example, the tree has to keep a lot of, trees have to keep lots of water inside the cells. Tree cells have to keep enough water. Okay, for example, you need to know the need. The roots have to anchor well to the soil. Roots have to anchor well to the soil. And also, you have to know, barnacles have to obtain food from the sea. You need to know their need. Okay, always answer from their need. And then later on, if you change the environment, for example, if you ask the trees to grow down the cliff, if you ask the barnacles go up the cliff, okay? When you want them to grow up the cliff, how the new environment deprive of their needs. Okay. For example, you cannot get the food. That's the deprivation. For example, you wash the soil away, so you cannot have a good anchorage. For example, the tree cells lose water. They don't have a good function. So that's a problem. You have to understand the problem. So the new environment can be said to be a problematic environment. That's problematic. Okay, you get all these. So I will go down, all the way down there. Okay, so I guess you finished some parts. So this is information from the visible light spectrum. You can see chlorophyll is green in color. Chlorophyll. They are green in color. Okay. Chlorophyll is green in color. What kind of wavelength can it absorb to carry out photosynthesis? It can only absorb this range of wavelength. Okay, and also this range of wavelength. For chlorophyll is green in color. What kind of color you can absorb? It can absorb light with wavelength at 400 to 470 nm. And also another range is 630 to 700 nm. Okay. You can only absorb light with wavelength at 4 to 400, 600 to 630. Okay. But it cannot absorb light of 470 to 630 nm. For photosynthesis. Okay, so the chlorophyll can the cell with chlorophyll can only absorb these two range of light. Do you get this? 周信之, do you get this? Okay, so there's another type of pigment. There's another type of pigment. I use red color. Red color called phycoerythrin. Phycoerythrin. For phycoerythrin is something as another style. For phycoerythrin, I have phycoerythrin, erythrin. Phycoerythrin, it is red in color. For phytoerythrin, it can absorb light at this range. Okay, it can absorb light at this range. So the range of light, photosynthesis wavelength of the light that it can absorb for photosynthesis is around 480 to 580 nm. Okay, but then it cannot absorb light at other ranges. For example, it cannot receive the light at around 450 and beyond 600. Okay, this is the first point that you have to understand about what kind of light they absorb. Phycoerythrin absorb this range of light. Chlorophyll absorb this range of light. They are different. Chlorophyll absorb this range of light. Okay, so let's take a look at graph 2. Let's take a look at graph 2. For 400 something to also 600 something around this range. Okay, around this range. So this is another problem. Light with wavelength at these two range. Light with wavelength at these two range cannot penetrate deep down to the sea. Okay. They cannot penetrate deep down to the sea. For example, this is at 0. This is a sea surface. On the top, this is a sea surface. Okay. But these two type of light can only penetrate around 30 to 40 meters deep down to the sea. Okay, they cannot penetrate very, very deep down to the sea. Okay, so cells with chlorophyll. So this is green seaweeds. Green seaweeds with green chlorophyll. green seaweeds with green chlorophyll, okay, can only grow in shallow water. 喺淺水度嘅。Can only grow in shallow water to absorb light for photosynthesis. Okay, Romana, do you understand? 周信之, do you understand? Make sure you keep on talking to me, then I know.
I'm a bit tired.
You mean you okay?
I think so. I'm a bit tired though, that's it.
Okay. Okay, so Romana understand. On the other, because in the morning, I think the Chinese students can't really get this because then it will make me feel that students find it hard. So I want to improve the teaching by trying more different methods. Okay. Okay, so let's copy from the phycoerythrin. Phycoerythrin, these range of light can penetrate deep down into the sea. Okay, they can penetrate deep down to the sea. So the first point, light with wavelength around 480 to 580 can penetrate deep down into the sea. You can see these two wavelengths, they are going deep down into the sea. Okay, so the red seaweeds with red phycoerythrin can grow in deep water. Okay, can grow in deep water. How deep is that? Maybe 150 meter or even 200 meter. They can grow in deep water to absorb light for photosynthesis because the type of light that they receive is in this range. Okay, so that's a reason why they can grow deep down into the water. Okay, so this question we have 4 marks. Firstly, you have to explain why the green seaweeds, what kind of light they can absorb, and the reason why they cannot grow in deep water. Okay, they cannot grow in deep water because they only grow in shallow water. Why? Because the light cannot penetrate. On the other hand, you have to explain this red pigment, phycoerythrin, something red in color. It can absorb light at this range, 480 to 580. Okay, this range of light can penetrate deep down into the water. So this type of seaweeds can grow deep down into the water to absorb light for photosynthesis. Okay, got it? 4 marks. I will go, let's move. Okay. So the next part, with reference to the flow chart, this flow chart is complicated, I can say. Okay. Have you copied it? If not, then refer to my video. So for the question 17, this is another difficult question. Basically, I will spend 2 hours in explaining 3 long questions to you. So every of them is complicated. Okay, so I will delete all these. Okay, so get your microphone on and I will listen to your explanation. I hope you can explain to me. Okay, carbohydrate is somewhere here. Carbohydrate. Okay, from carbohydrate to glucose. What the question I ask you why when we eat lots of carbohydrate is here. Then we will store a lot of fat. What is fat? Triglyceride is a fat. Explain your pathway. Okay. Romana, when we eat a lot of carbohydrate, do we have lots of glucose? And why? 4 marks. When we eat lots of carbohydrate, do we have lots of glucose? Your answer? And any of you can answer. I just wait for your answer. Do you think when you eat a lot of carbohydrate, do you have lots of glucose? Stay awake, stay awake. I forgot to read. So restart the recording. Okay. First point, carbohydrate digesting into glucose. Second point, glucose stimulate more, make the pancreas secrete more insulin. With greater insulin effect, then you can convert more acetyl-CoA into fatty acid, convert more glucose into acetyl-CoA, convert more acetyl-CoA into fatty acid, into triglyceride. Okay, by the plus sign. You have to pay attention to the positive sign here. Positive sign. Okay. So eventually you convert more acetyl-CoA into fatty acids and triglyceride. Triglyceride is the fat. Okay, point 2. Point 2, part 2. They try to inject insulin. If they don't receive insulin, then they will produce lots of keto exits. Let's explain why. Okay. Let's explain why. If we don't have insulin effects, so previously you have to get your attention to the process inhibited by insulin. By the concept inhibit, that means previously 4C compound. Oh no, try again. Previously 4C compound being converted to glucose, insulin will put a cross on it. Okay, insulin don't like this. Insulin prevents this conversion. Insulin want to prevent this conversion. So now in 17A21, part 1. How do we answer that question? When they don't receive enough insulin, what happens? They will produce a lot of keto exit. Okay, so let's try to dig out some function. When the patients do not have enough insulin, when the patients do not have enough insulin, what happened? So several inhibitory effects by insulin will be reduced. Okay, will be reduced. For example, insulin don't like this conversion. Insulin don't like this conversion. Okay. Insulin don't like this conversion either. Okay. Insulin don't like all these conversion, but then now you have less insulin effect. Several inhibitory effects by insulin will be reduced. So what are they? What are the inhibitory effects? For example, what are they? Without insulin inhibition, more triglycerides will be converted into acetyl-CoA. Without insulin inhibition, so this orange arrow occurs a lot. You produce more acetyl-CoA. Okay. I use orange to highlight this. Another effect, 1B. Another effect is that without insulin inhibition, without insulin inhibition, more 4-carbon compound. More 4C compound will is converted into glucose. Okay. More 4C compound is converted into glucose. So concentration of 4C compound is reduced. Okay, you have less 4C compound now. You have less 4C compound. With less 4C compound, with less 4-carbon compound available, with less 4C compound available, okay, or in the other way, less 4C compound is available to combine with acetyl-CoA. Less 4C compound is available to combine with acetyl-CoA to form 6C compound. Okay. We don't have enough 4C now, so there's nobody to bind to acetyl-CoA. So therefore, acetyl-CoA will accumulate. Now this, with more acetyl-CoA, accumulation, and also part 1C. Part 1C means that acetyl-CoA without insulin inhibition, acetyl-CoA will be converted into keto acids. More of them will occur. So more of them will be converted into keto acid, Okay, so therefore, we play around with this chart and you understand why we have a large amount of keto acid at the last point. Okay, so you see A-level question is so demanding. A-level question is so demanding. You have to write a lot of words to get 4 marks. Okay, I clear the drawing. Let you ask questions from me. So Shunji, can you explain this part? Okay, I need your explanation from you verbally. Can you turn on your camera I need to see you. Because I show you my face as well. Romana, do you understand? Can you explain again? When you express it by your own word, when you express it by your own word, I want you to express it first. Which arrow refers to which arrow? Okay, don't have insulin inhibitory effect. Those minus sign will be reduced. Okay, those minus sign will be reduced. For example, no insulin. So we don't have the minus sign there. So blue arrow, carry on. Without insulin inhibition, more 4C compound is converted into glucose. Okay, I convert more 4C compound into glucose. Okay, so we no longer have 4C compound available. Nobody to bind with acetyl-CoA. Therefore, they do not form 6C compound. They do not form 6C compound. So therefore, acetyl-CoA will accumulate. Last point. Without insulin inhibition, more acetyl-CoA will be converted into keto acid. So you convert more of them into keto acid. So eventually, we have to understand more acetyl-CoA, more keto acid. It's better if you can reply me verbally. Okay, last one. Part two refers to the situation when you have too much keto acid. Keto acid is quite acidic. Okay, so keto acid can lower the pH value of your blood, or the tissue fluid. Okay, both of them. Keto acid can lower the pH value of blood and the tissue fluid. What happened then? With this lowering, then they will low pH can actually denature the enzyme. Okay, low pH can denature the enzyme, so the cell cannot function well. Okay, the cell cannot function well. This is a problem. Last part, to control the blood glucose, this is not yet the last part. To control the blood glucose level. Okay, let's see how they control the blood glucose level. Let me see, blood glucose level. Okay, let's see. Romana, do you remember what is the effect of insulin? Some diabetic patient taking too much of that drugs. They stimulate insulin secretion too much. What happens? What is the insulin effect? What is an insulin effect there? Overdose of drugs can stimulate more insulin secretion. Can you refer to the insulin? Can you refer to insulin that chapter now? Insulin. Okay, I hope this can help you. Insulin, that chapter. Okay, according to chapter 18, page 7, insulin have several effects. So they stimulate liver cells to take up more glucose, stimulate body cell to take up more glucose, stimulate more glucose conversion into glycogen. Okay, and also stimulate body cell to consume more glucose. Oh, high insulin level stimulates body cells to take up glucose. Take up glucose and to consume glucose excessively. Okay, so everybody take up too much glucose. Okay, they take up too much glucose. So the blood glucose level decreases to a dangerous level. Blood glucose level decreases to a dangerous level. Has decreased to a dangerously low level. Got it? So you don't have enough glucose. We also wonder why this is particularly causing dizziness first. Dizziness. So it's about your brain. Your brain function. Brain can only rely on glucose supply. Can only rely on glucose supply. Can only rely on supply of glucose for respiration, for energy. Okay. Because of the structure, brain cannot rely on other nutrients. But not rely on other nutrients. So the brain can only consume glucose. Okay. With too little glucose, insufficient sufficient blood glucose in blood can cause the malfunction. That means poor function. Poor poor functioning or even death of brain cells. So you see the logic is very important. The logic there. Overdose can cause more insulin secretion. More insulin stimulates body cells to pick up more glucose, consume more glucose. So blood glucose is way too low than normal. So you cannot supply enough glucose to the brain cell. Brain cell cannot function properly or brain cell may die. Okay, brain cell may die. Okay, you finish this part. Again, I will share the part with you now. Part C. So I want to show you some answer to make it more quickly, to make the whole thing more quickly. So for the diet control, how you control the diet to manage blood glucose level more properly. Okay, so for example, some people may have diabetes, type 2 diabetes. You have to, doctor will recommend you some advice on your diet. For example, you eat more vegetables at every meal. So what's the effect? For example, first point, vegetable contains lots of fiber, dietary fiber. They cannot be digested. Vegetable contains dietary fiber. They cannot be digested, so they will not contribute to the blood glucose level. Second point, the fiber, we don't learn this in the textbook, but then it's also a good concept for you. They bind with other carbohydrates. They bind with other carbohydrates. Okay, so they can slow down the carbohydrate digestion, slow down the glucose absorption. So the last point, the fiber also gives a sense of satiety. So the sense of satiety, that means your fullness. Satiety, that means the sense of fullness in stomach. Okay, you feel that you eat a lot of food. Okay, when you feel that you eat a lot of food, you will reduce the food intake. You will stop eating because you have, okay, I feel full in my stomach, and so I eat less food. So that helps to restrict the increase in blood glucose level. Okay, last one. Another advice for you. Another advice is to take more meals, but each meal is more frequent. Okay, take more meals. So small meals That means in each meal you eat less amount of food. With less amount of food, you can restrict the amount of glucose absorbed. Okay. Less food in each meal. Okay. But then some of you may say, okay, with less food in each meal, so you do not have enough glucose. So therefore, when your glucose level may sustain for around 2 to 3 hours, then after that, you eat another meal. So frequent meal can provide sufficient glucose. Okay. But greater number of meals. But shorter non-eating, shorter duration between each meal. Okay. So I want to make sure that you understand this part. You need to eat less food in each meal, so you have less glucose. The glucose level will not go too high. And then you also have shorter duration between each meal, so you also provide sufficient glucose. Okay. So if you get it, I will go to the next part. So Chun-Si, please wake up. Please reply me. So go to another chapter. This is cross chapter number 8. So behind this chapter 24, we say, okay, look for this question. This is DSC level 2019. But then it is IS integrated science paper, not really biology paper. Okay, good. So dengue virus. Romana, do you understand? Did you heard of dengue fever? Did you heard of dengue fever? What is dengue fever? Okay, for example, you may have heard of this. There are some vectors transmitting disease. So like mosquito biting you, you can transmit disease like dengue fever. So basically it's about mosquito bites. It's about mosquito bites. I want your reply, please. Did you heard of it? I teach it during the class. So this is chapter 23. page 10. Yeah. For example, any possible ways to prevent mosquito bites? Okay, you can remove the breeding places, those stagnant water, puddles of water is where they tend to breed. Okay. Better don't get contact with the mosquitoes. Better not bitten by them. And you can also kill the vectors. Okay, according to the questions here. Okay, dengue virus. Dengue virus will, people may look red or swollen. Why do they look red or swollen? So we have to separate the explanation into two parts. Okay. If you remember the word called inflammatory response. Inflammatory responses when you are bitten by something, or when you have a wound on your skin. When you have a little wound on your skin, they can, or the mosquito also secrete some chemicals. These chemicals can cause two effects. For example, arterioles dilate. What is the arterioles? Arterioles is a little bigger artery. Artery around here. Arterioles dilate means they get larger. The blood vessel gets larger. Okay, and that part, that's why there's a greater blood flow to this part. There's more blood flow to this part. Okay, so you can explain why it looks more red. Because the blood flow separate into 2 points. Redness is caused by, okay, the redness is caused by the dilation, of arterioles. Okay, arterioles will have some kind of dilation. So there are more blood flows to the capillaries near the skin surface, near the wound. Okay. So you want to supply more blood to that part. So capillaries will have more blood flow. Capillaries. More blood flow to the capillaries near the skin surface. So greater blood flow. I draw a big arrow there. Greater blood flow. And then your skin will look a bit more red in that part. Okay. Another task to explain why it's swollen. It's swollen because the permeability of capillaries increase. Okay. Permeability means these holes. They allow more holes on the blood vessel. Okay, allow more holes. Therefore, the concept about swollen. It turns more swollen because permeability of capillaries increase. Okay, permeability of capillaries increase. There are more more water coming out. More fluid leaves the blood vessel. And become the tissue fluid. Okay, more fluid leaves the blood and become the tissue fluid. Tissue fluid means the fluid around the tissue. Tissue fluid is somewhere around here. These are the tissue fluid. Okay. So they swell because of the accumulation of tissue fluid. Become the more tissue fluid accumulating around the wound. Therefore, it's swell. Okay, so this is a 2-mark question for part A. Explain the kind of white blood cell involved in bringing that recovery. Okay, part 2. Do you have enough time to copy? Puppy. Okay, I assume you have copied all these. So part B, we say people infected, they will recover when there's a lot of antibodies produced. So for the part about antibodies, is here. Okay, immune response. So B cell, they get into contact with certain kinds of B cell. Okay, so this B cell, we say this is activated because the pathogen, this is a pathogen, get in touch. The pathogen gets in touch with the B cell. So what happened to that B cell? That B cell will form a lot of similar B cell. They just go on cell division and produce more B cell. These B cell will differentiate into plasma cell and memory B cell. For memory B cell, they produce some kind of memory. They remember the type of antigen so that they can respond again quickly next time. Okay, for this time, plasma cells actually release the antibodies. Okay, so for part 1, you can either write B cells, or you can write the plasma cells. It is the plasma cells that produce the antibodies. Okay, plasma cells produce the antibodies, so you help with the recovery. Okay, got it? So the next part, part 2. The next part talks about, okay, there are 4 types. There are 4 types of dengue virus. 4 types of dengue virus. Okay. For example, I just say, let's say there are type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. Imagine if you are infected. Imagine if you are somehow infected by type 2. Infected by type 2. You are infected by type 2, so you are immune to type 2 dengue virus only. You're only immune to, okay? If you're infected by type 2 dengue virus, you're only immune to type 2 dengue virus later on. Okay? But you are not immune to, type 1, 3, 4. 1, 3, and 4 dengue virus. So they want to ask you why you are not immune to other types of dengue virus. Okay, so basically you have to mention the production of antibodies as specific. Okay, or you can say our immunological memory is specific. Our immunological memory is specific. The memory B cell can only recognize the type of antigens invaded last time. Okay. So next time, when other subtypes or other dengue virus subtypes invades our body, so the antigen has a different shape as the subtypes last time. Antigen with other shape. Their antigen does not, the antigen shape of antigens is different from the subtype last time. Invading last time. Okay. Last time there's some kind of virus infecting you. So our memory B cell can only recognize the type 2 dengue virus. But then next time when there's type 1, 3, and 4 infecting you, your memory cell cannot recognize the shape of antigen. Okay, so the memory B cells cannot recognize it. Okay, so there's no immunity against other subtypes. No immunity is available against other subtypes. This is a concept. Okay, last two parts. I guess you need some time to type it. Romana, I need your response now, not just to say yes. Suggest how the projected changes in temperature and rainfall. Tell me what is going to be the change here from the old days to the new days to the future. What happens to the temperature? Romana? What happens to the temperature? Okay, temperature increase. What happens to the rainfall? Number of days of rainfall and also the average rainfall. What happens to the rainfall? I saw an answer. Also increases. Okay, that's good. So basically, temperature increase, rainfall also increase. These two have different effects. Okay, first concept, temperature increases. Okay, and also rainfall increases. Both of them can increase. Okay, and you can imagine when temperature increase, the temperature increase can increase the temperature increase can increase the activity of enzyme. Okay, can increase the activity of enzyme. So basically we can say mosquitoes are more active and are more active in their life cycle. So they can there is a greater chance for mosquitoes to bite different people. and spreading the disease. There's a greater chance for mosquitoes to bite different people and spread the disease. Okay, this is point 1. Another point, rainfall increase. Rainfall, increase in rainfall can form more water puddles, can form more puddles around. Okay, which provides more breeding places, for mosquitoes. Okay. So it also allow there are more mosquitoes. You expect there will be more mosquitoes. When there are more mosquitoes, then there will be problem. There will be a greater risk of infection, disease transmission, etc. Okay, so the last point of this question, if you have any, for those MCQ, if you have any questions, you can ask me through WhatsApp, whatever, and I can answer you flexibly. So dengue fever, back in the middle of 20th century, so around, it means it's around 1950s, it's quite restricted in Southeast Asia and Africa. Okay. They can spread around. But then when currently, they also spread to South America. Why? Because the increase in traveling activities, the increase in traveling activities or people movement, you can say. Population movement allows the increase in traveling activities, population movement allows the infected the pathogen carrier or the infected people, basically. Infected people to spread the pathogens around, okay? To carry the pathogens around the world, okay? So when mosquitoes bite them, they will also spread the pathogens to South America. You will also spread the disease there. Okay, so this is the end of my class.